Let me tell you something nobody wants to say out loud. The 49ers just built a scarier offense than the one that went to the Super Bowl, and most people haven't even noticed yet. I'm going to break down every single move this front office just made, and by the end of this, you're going to understand why this offseason isn't just about patching holes. It's about building something that could haunt the NFC for the next half decade. But here's the question I want you to sit with. Is this a win-now roster, or is this actually a transition disguised as a reload? Because I've been watching this team for years, and right now, I genuinely can't give you a clean answer. What I can tell you is that by the time I'm done here, you will have your own. So stay with me. This is the breakdown the fan base needs. Let's start where it all begins. The draft room decision that set the tone for everything that followed. When the 49ers traded out of pick 27, I know a lot of us felt that gut punch in real time. You're sitting there at Levi's Stadium watching the board move and thinking, what is John Lynch doing? But here's what you have to understand. This front office made a calculated bet that there was no true first-round talent available at that slot worth the price of staying there. And instead of forcing a pick, they did what elite organizations do. They traded down, stacked picks, and walked out of that room with 8 players. 8. That is not an accident. That is a philosophy. That is a front office that trusts their board over the moment, over the noise, over the Twitter takes. And the centerpiece of that new approach is Dejon Stribling, the wide receiver out of Ole Miss who landed at pick 33 and immediately had people questioning the move. I was one of them for about 45 minutes. Then I actually looked at the tape. This kid ran a 4.36 in the 40. 4.36. And here's the thing that made me stop cold. Not a single player on the 49ers roster last season hit 20 miles per hour with the ball in hand. Not one. In a Kyle Shanahan offense. In a system literally designed to create explosive plays through space and speed, nobody was breaking that threshold. That is embarrassing for a team with Super Bowl aspirations. And if you watched those playoff games carefully, you already knew it. Defenses were sitting on routes because they didn't fear getting burned deep. Stribling changes that equation the moment he steps on the field. But here's where it gets more interesting than just raw speed. At Ole Miss, over 30% of Stribling's routes were vertical. He's not just a guy who runs a straight line and hopes the ball drops in his lap. He can stretch the field, come back underneath, punish zone coverage when corners bail, and then turn around and attack man coverage with the kind of confidence that only comes from a guy who knows exactly how fast he is. That combination, the vertical threat paired with the ability to work underneath, is what a Shanahan offense weaponizes. You put Stribling next to Mike Evans and Ricky Pearsall, you suddenly have a receiver room that can hurt you in 3 completely different ways on every single snap. Defenses cannot shade one direction anymore. And before I move on, I need to say this because it matters in this system more than any other in the league. Kyle Shanahan personally called Stribling the best blocking wide receiver in the entire draft class. In a Shanahan offense, wide receiver blocking is not a nice to have. It is the thing that determines whether you're on the field or watching from the sideline. The fact that this kid can both split out and bury a cornerback on the edge on run plays, that is a player this offense will use early and often. Now here's where I'm going to flip the script on you. Because while everyone is talking about the offensive additions and how good this receiver room looks, I think the most important long-term story coming out of this offseason is on the defensive side of the ball. And it's connected to the biggest fear every Niners fan has had since Raheem Morris walked through the door. Romello Height, edge rusher, Texas Tech, 10 sacks and 58 pressures in college. And I know what you're thinking. Pass rushers coming from non-Power 2 programs get filtered out by NFL complexity all the time. But what changed here is the coaching. With Raheem Morris now running this defense, we're not just talking about a guy plugging into a traditional 4-3 structure. Morris has already shown with Byron Young and Jalen Walker in Los Angeles what he does with versatile edge defenders. He turns them into chess pieces. Guys who can rush on 3rd and long, drop into coverage on 2nd and 8, walk up to the line and disguise the entire call. Height has the athletic profile to become exactly that kind of player. Right now, year 1, he's probably working situationally behind Nick Bosa. But in year 2 and 3, if Morris develops him the way he developed his guys in LA, you are looking at a starter. And that matters because the window we're talking about, and I want to be very clear about this, the window is open right now. Not next year, not in 2 years, now. This is where I need you to really hear me. Christian McCaffrey had 413 touches last season. 413. He is about to turn 30 years old. That is not a workload any back sustains without consequences. And history has been brutal on running backs who cross that threshold. So when the 49ers drafted Caden Black out of Indiana, a kid who rushed for over 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns in an outside zone system, this is not a depth pick. This is an insurance policy for the most important offensive player on the roster. Black already understands the footwork, the read progression, the cut timing that Shanahan's outside zone demands. That's not nothing. Most backs coming into this system need a full year just to understand where to put their eyes. Black arrives with a head start. I do want to be honest with you about something, though, because I'm not going to sit here and just hype you up without being real. The 49ers have a running back problem historically. Joe Williams, Trey Sermon, Tyrion Davis-Price, mid-round picks who came in with promise and disappeared. The guys who've actually worked out, Matt Breida, Jordan Mason, Elijah Mitchell, were either undrafted or picked later. Black has to break a pattern that this front office has not been able to crack. That's just the truth. And I think John Lynch knows it, which is why he also went hard in undrafted free agency the way he did. And I need you to subscribe right now and hit that like button, because what I'm about to get into is the part of this offseason that nobody is covering the way it deserves. And if you're a real one, a genuine member of the faithful who stays up watching film and actually cares about roster construction, this next part is for you. Carver Willis might be the most impactful player this team selected in the entire draft, and he barely got mentioned in the headlines. Left guard is a position the 49ers have struggled with for 2 straight seasons. It has been a revolving door of underperforming starters and injured backups. Willis played tackle in college, but the team wants him inside. And that conversion, when it works, typically produces above-average guards because the athlete is already bigger and more physically gifted than what's normally available at the position at the college level. If Willis wins that left guard job in camp, the offensive line goes from a question mark to a genuine strength overnight. That protects Brock Purdy. That protects McCaffrey in the backfield. That allows the play-action game to operate the way Shanahan actually designed it. An offensive line that can hold up for 4 quarters is the thing that separates good Niners teams from great ones. And this is a step towards solving a real problem. On the defensive interior, Grayson Halton is a rotational piece right now, but his pressure rate in college was among the highest for interior linemen in the country. He runs a 4.82 40 and posted a 4.79 shuttle, numbers that at his size are genuinely exceptional. He learns behind Osa Odigizua. He watches, he develops, and if Alfred Collins and CJ West handle the run the way the coaching staff expects them to, Halton gets to operate as a pure pass rush specialist in nickel packages. That is a role that wins you playoff games in January. Now let's talk about the undrafted class, because this is where the 49ers have historically minted contributors that nobody saw coming, and this year's class might be the most interesting they've assembled in a while. Khalil Dinkins is a tight end from Penn State who received $275,000 guaranteed. You do not hand a tight end that kind of guaranteed money unless you genuinely believe he can contribute. With George Kittle potentially starting on injured reserve, Dinkins has a legitimate shot to make the 53-man roster. If he can block at the level his tape suggests and give Purdy a reliable target underneath, this could be one of the steals of the entire undrafted class across the whole league. Jack Baumeister averaged over 45 yards per punt and led the Pac-12 at one point. He's coming in to compete for the punter job and has a real chance to win it. Miles Kamara at edge rusher, potentially converting to outside linebacker, gives the team another high-motor athlete to develop on the cheap. James Thompson at defensive tackle received $280,000 guaranteed. The front office clearly sees something in him as a run stopper. Here's what all of this tells me when you put it together. The 49ers are not rebuilding, but they are also not going all in on a single window in a desperate way. What they're doing is something harder and smarter. They are layering. They brought in immediate contributors like Stribling and Willis who can play right now. They drafted developmental players like Height and Halton who need a year or 2 to reach their ceiling. And they added insurance and future pieces like Black and Dinkins for the roster spots that will matter most when key veterans age out of their contracts or decline physically. This is the answer to the question I asked you at the beginning. Is this a win-now roster or a transition? It's both. And that's not a cop-out answer. That is actually the hardest thing to execute in the NFL. It's what the great dynasties do. The Patriots did it, the Chiefs are doing it right now, and the 49ers, under John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, are attempting to do the same thing. Build depth while keeping the core intact. Keep the window open without sacrificing the future to do it. My honest take? I don't think this draft class produces a bunch of headlines in year 1. You're probably not going to see Stribling or Black or Height on the All-Pro ballot in December. But come back to this video in 2 years. If 2 or 3 of these guys are starting, if Willis is anchoring that offensive line, if Height is dropping into coverage in 3rd and long situations while Bosa commands a double team on the other side, then this draft will look like exactly what it was. Calculated, deliberate. The work of a front office that doesn't panic, doesn't chase hype, and trusts its own evaluation over the noise. The window is open right now. Brock Purdy is healthy. McCaffrey is still in his prime. Bosa is one of the best defenders in football, and now this team has more speed, more depth, and more flexibility than it had going into any of the last 3 seasons. I believe this team goes back to the Super Bowl. I believe in what Lynch and Shanahan are building, and I believe that by week 8 of next season, a lot of the doubters on this draft class are going to go very quiet. Now I want to know what you think. Are you feeling better about where the Niners are headed, or does something still feel off to you? Drop your honest reaction in the comments. I read every single one. And if you're part of the faithful, if you bleed red and gold and believe this team's best days are still ahead, hit that like and subscribe right now.